November 8, 1944. 0547 hours. Leyte Gulf, Philippines. Staff Sergeant Robert Bob Hayward, 27 years old, crouches in a waterlogged foxhole on Hill 522. His standard M1 Garand clutched tight against his chest. The rifle's been his companion through 3 island campaigns, but right now it feels inadequate. Through the pre-dawn darkness, he can hear them, Japanese snipers, positioned somewhere in the dense jungle canopy, 600 yards upslope. They've been picking off his platoon for 2 days straight. 17 men down. 17 good soldiers who never saw the muzzle flash, never heard the shot until the bullet had already found its mark. Hayward presses himself deeper into the mud as another crack splits the air. Private Jensen, 30 feet to his left, crumples without a sound. The M1 Garand, in Hayward's hands, legendary though it is, can't reach those bastards. Effective range, 500 yards. The Japanese are firing from 600, maybe 650. They know exactly where the American rifles' teeth stop biting. They're staying just beyond that invisible line, picking the Americans apart one shot at a time. Hayward doesn't know it yet, but in exactly 4 hours, a Marine captain is going to hand him a rifle that will change everything. By November 1944, the United States military faced a persistent and deadly problem across the Pacific theater. Japanese snipers were systematically neutralizing American infantry advances through precision, long-range fire. Traditional Japanese military doctrine emphasized marksmanship, and their best shooters, armed with 6.5 mm Arisaka Type 38 rifles and positioned in elevated concealed positions, could effectively engage targets at ranges exceeding 700 yards. The standard American infantry rifle, the M1 Garand, was a revolutionary semi-automatic weapon that had fundamentally changed battlefield tactics. Adopted in 1936, it fired the powerful .30 Zur-6 Springfield cartridge and gave American soldiers an unprecedented rate of fire advantage over bolt-action equipped enemies. General George S. Patton called it the greatest battle implement ever devised. But the M1 had a critical limitation. Its effective range topped out around 500 yards. The barrel length of 24 inches, while optimal for maneuverability and semi-automatic function, couldn't provide the velocity needed for accurate long-range shooting. From Guadalcanal to Tarawa, from Saipan to Peleliu, American commanders filed after-action reports describing the same frustrating scenario. Japanese snipers would establish positions in elevated terrain, treetops, cliff faces, mountain ridges, at ranges between 600 and 800 yards. From these positions, they could observe American movements and engage at will, while remaining effectively immune to return fire from standard infantry weapons. The snipers tied down entire companies, forced costly flanking maneuvers, and inflicted disproportionate casualties. The Springfield M1903 sniper rifle, fitted with an un-Ertl 8X scope, could reach those distances, but production had ceased in 1942. Only approximately 28,000 M19903A4 sniper variants existed in the entire Pacific theater by late 1944, distributed across hundreds of thousands of infantry. Most rifle companies had 2, maybe 3 designated marksmen with scoped Springfields. When a Japanese sniper opened fire, those few specialists became priority targets. Kill or suppress the American counter-sniper, and the Japanese shooter could operate with near impunity. At Peleliu, in September 1944, the 1st Marine Division reported 1,950 casualties in the first week of fighting. Intelligence estimates suggested that approximately 30% of these casualties, nearly 600 men, resulted from long-range sniper fire. The Japanese had fortified the island's elevated Brogal mountain with interconnected caves and prepared positions. Their snipers controlled sight lines across the entire southern approach. American infantry, pinned down in coral outcroppings with no cover, took devastating losses. The problem intensified during the Philippines campaign. The mountainous terrain of Leyte provided endless elevated positions. Japanese doctrine called for Kyushu, precision marksmen, to slow American advances while main forces prepared defensive positions. Each day of delay gave the Japanese more time to dig in, more time to position artillery, more time to prepare the defenses that would cost American lives. By October 1944, the situation had reached critical mass. General Douglas MacArthur's staff calculated that Japanese sniper tactics were delaying territorial gains by an average of 2.3 days per objective. In a campaign where timing meant everything, where the monsoon season would soon make air support impossible, and where Japanese reinforcements were streaming in from Luzon, those delays were unacceptable. The U.S. Army Ordnance Department had been wrestling with potential solutions since mid-1943. Various experiments had been conducted, lengthening M1 barrels, developing specialized ammunition, even training programs to improve marksmanship at extended ranges. Nothing had produced decisive results. The M1's action simply wasn't designed for longer barrels. The operating rod system that made it semi-automatic created harmonic vibrations that degraded accuracy with barrels exceeding 26 inches. Then, in August 1944, a civilian engineer named Theodore Hayes at Springfield Armory proposed something radical. Hayes had been studying battlefield reports and noticed an interesting correlation. The Army Air Force's P-51 Mustang fighter was dominating Pacific skies using 6 M2 Browning 50 caliber machine guns. Those barrels were manufactured to extraordinary tolerances. They had to be, firing at 800 rounds per minute at 25,000 feet. Hayes asked a simple question. Could those manufacturing techniques be applied to rifle barrels? Specifically, Hayes proposed using the deep hole drilling technology and chrome-lined barrel techniques developed for aircraft weapons to create an extended M1 barrel that could maintain accuracy. More importantly, he suggested using a specialized barrel profile, thicker at the chamber, tapering aggressively toward the muzzle, that would dampen the harmonic issues while adding minimal weight. If you want to see how American ingenuity turned Japanese sniper superiority into a desperate scramble for survival, hit that like button and subscribe. This story gets wild. Back to Bob Hayward. On September 12, 1944, Springfield Armory delivered the first 12 prototype rifles to the Ordnance Testing Center at Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland. The official designation, M1 Garand, modified barrel, extended range, or M1 Ember. The Marines who would eventually use it had a simpler name, the Mustang rifle. The weapon looked almost identical to a standard M1 Garand at first glance. Same walnut stock, same 8-round on-block clip system, same gas-operated semi-automatic action. But the barrel told a different story. Where a standard M1 barrel measured 24 inches, the Mustang rifle extended to 28.5 inches. Those additional 4.5 inches weren't simply added to the end. The entire barrel had been redesigned from chamber to muzzle. The barrel blank started its life in the same factory that produced barrel assemblies for P-51 Mustang machine guns, hence the nickname. Engineers used a deep hole drilling process that created a bore with tolerances measured in 10,000ths of an inch. The rifling, 6 grooves with a 110 right-hand twist, was cut using the same carbide tooling used for aircraft weapons. Each barrel was then chrome-lined using an electroplating process that deposited a layer 0.002 inches thick along the entire bore. This chrome lining served dual purposes. It dramatically increased barrel life, and it provided a surface so smooth that friction was reduced by approximately 30% compared to standard barrels. The barrel profile represented the real innovation. From the chamber to a point 18 inches forward, the barrel maintained the same external diameter as a standard M1, 0.625 inches. Then it tapered down aggressively, reaching 0.490 inches at the muzzle. This taper reduced the barrel's weight to just 2.8 pounds, only 0.4 pounds heavier than standard, while dramatically increasing stiffness at the critical chamber end where pressures peaked. The muzzle received a specialized crown, a target-grade 11-degree precision cut that ensured gases released evenly around the bullet as it exited. A flash suppressor, borrowed from the M1903A4 sniper rifle design, screwed onto the end, adding another 1.2 inches and reducing muzzle flash by approximately 60%. The complete Mustang rifle weighed 10.2 pounds loaded, 13 ounces heavier than a standard M1. The additional length made it slightly less maneuverable in jungle fighting, but acceptable for designated marksmen who would engage from more static positions. Internally, Springfield engineers had made subtle but critical modifications. The operating rod, the part that cycled the action, received a reinforced spring and a slightly heavier buffer to account for the increased barrel length's effect on harmonics. The gas port, located 16.5 inches from the chamber, was drilled 0.004 inches smaller than standard to compensate for the longer barrel's pressure curve. The trigger received a competition-grade polish, reducing pull weight from the standard 5.5 pounds to 3.8 pounds. The sear engagement was refined to eliminate creep. These modifications, standard on match rifles, gave the Mustang rifle a trigger break so crisp that shooters described it as like snapping a glass rod. The rear sight remained the standard M1 aperture design, but it was calibrated for the new ballistics. Maximum elevation adjustment allowed for targets at 1-200 yards, double the standard M1's range markings. Windage adjustments were graduated in finer increments. One click moved. Point of impact, just 0.5 inches at 100 yards, compared to 1 inch on standard rifles. Aberdeen testing began on September 18, 1944. Engineers fired 500-round test strings from each prototype at ranges from 100 to 800 yards. Results exceeded expectations. At 600 yards, the critical range where Japanese snipers operated, the Mustang rifle could place 5 consecutive shots within a 6-inch circle. At 700 yards, groups opened to 9 inches. Even at 800 yards, a competent marksman could maintain 14-inch groups. Standard M1 Garands, by comparison, struggled to maintain 18-inch groups at 600 yards, and accuracy degraded so rapidly beyond that range that effective fire was essentially impossible. The extended barrel increased muzzle velocity from 2,800 feet per second to 2,950 feet per second, a 5.4% improvement that translated to dramatically flatter trajectory and increased energy on target. At 700 yards, the Mustang rifle's bullet retained 1,340 foot-pounds of energy, enough to penetrate standard Japanese helmets and inflict lethal wounds through cover. On October 3, 1944, General MacArthur's headquarters received the Aberdeen report and immediately requisitioned 2,000 rifles for emergency deployment. Springfield Armory went into crash production, running 3 shifts around the clock. By October 28th, The first 400 Mustang rifles were crated and loaded onto transport aircraft at Wright-Patterson Field, Ohio. Destination, Tacloban Airfield, Leyte. November 8, 1944. Aero 9:47 hours. Hill 522, Leyte. Bob Hayward watches as Marine Captain James Mitchell unpacks a wooden crate marked Ordnance Priority 1. The captain pulls out a rifle that looks almost, but not quite, like Hayward's M1. The barrel is longer, ending in a distinctive flash suppressor. The wood is darker, the finish more refined. Sergeant Hayward, Mitchell says, you qualified expert at Camp Pendleton, correct? Yes, sir. 241 out of 250. Good. Mitchell hands him the rifle and 3 8-round clips. This is experimental. Extended range modification. Intelligence reports the Jap snipers are operating from a cave system at 630 yards, bearings 47 degrees. We've spotted muzzle flashes. I need you to put rounds on target. Hayward hefts the weapon. It feels right, balanced, despite the extra length. The trigger, when he tests it, breaks clean and light. He loads a clip with the distinctive M1 ping, chambers a round, and settles into a prone position behind a fallen mahogany tree. 0953 hours. Through his iron sights, Hayward can barely distinguish the cave opening. A dark smudge against gray rock 630 yards upslope. He adjusts his rear sight to the 600-yard marking, then adds 2 clicks elevation. Windage, left to right breeze, maybe 8 miles per hour. 3 clicks right. He slows his breathing, exhales halfway. The crosshairs settle on the cave mouth. A flicker of movement. Muzzle flash. Hayward doesn't hear the Japanese bullet. It cracks past somewhere to his left. He focuses, entirely on his front sight post, aligned perfectly on that cave entrance. Squeeze, don't pull. The trigger breaks. The Mustang rifle reports with a sharp crack, different from a standard M1. Higher pitched, more focused. The recoil is notably lighter. That tapered barrel is whipping less. Hayward cycles the action smoothly, maintaining his sight picture. Through the morning haze, he sees it, dust and rock fragments exploding from the cave entrance. He fired high, but not by much, maybe 8 inches. He adjusts, 1 click down, exhales again, fires. This time, the impact is dead center on the cave mouth. Hayward fires again, and again. 5 rounds down range in 12 seconds, each one hammering into that opening. Then silence. Cease fire, Captain Mitchell says quietly. He's glassing the cave through binoculars. Hold position. They wait. 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10. No return fire. Okay, Mitchell says. Second squad, advance and clear. Hayward, you cover. Hayward watches through his sights as 9 Marines move upslope in bounding overwatch. It takes them 40 minutes to reach the cave complex. When they finally radio back, their report is succinct. 3 KIA, 1 Type 38 rifle, 1 set of binoculars, 1 range card. Position is secure. 3 Japanese snipers. These 3 had killed 17 Americans over 2 days. Now they're dead, killed by a rifle firing from a range they thought was safe. By 11:30 hours, word has spread through the battalion. Hayward fires 87 more rounds that day, engaging Japanese positions between 580 and 720 yards. He scores confirmed suppression on 11 positions and 3 confirmed kills. More importantly, the Japanese snipers who had been operating with impunity suddenly go quiet. They're still out there. Muzzle flashes occasionally appear from extreme ranges, but they're no longer dominating the battlefield. November 9th, 1944. The battalion receives 8 more Mustang rifles. Hayward spends the morning training others, expert qualified riflemen, on the weapons, capabilities, and limitations. By afternoon, they're operating in pairs. 1 Mustang rifle shooter, with one standard M1 rifleman as spotter and close-range security. The effect is immediate and dramatic. Japanese snipers, accustomed to sitting in positions 600-plus yards from American lines and picking targets at leisure, suddenly find themselves under accurate return fire. They have three choices: withdraw to even greater distances, reducing their own effectiveness, stay and fight and die, or abandon sniper tactics entirely. Most choose withdrawal. Between November 9 and November 15, confirmed Japanese sniper casualties in the 7th Infantry Division sector dropped from an average of 12 per day to 3 per day, a 75% reduction. American casualties from long-range fire dropped proportionally. 47 casualties in the week before Mustang rifle deployment versus 14 casualties in the week after. The tactical implications ripple outward. Without effective sniper overwatch, Japanese defensive positions become easier to assault. Infantry advances that previously took 6 to 8 hours can now be completed in 3 to 4. Artillery can be brought forward without crews being decimated. Supply lines become less vulnerable. By November 18th, the 7th Infantry Division has secured Hill 522 and pushed 3 miles beyond. The terrain that Japanese planners expected to hold for 3 weeks has fallen in 10 days. On November 22, 1944, General Walter Kruger, commander of the 6th Army, attended a field demonstration of the Mustang rifle at Tacloban. Marine Master Sergeant David Chen, one of the first recipients, engaged steel silhouette targets at ranges from 600 to 900 yards. Of 30 shots fired, 27 connected. Kruger immediately expanded the requisition from 2,000 rifles to 8,500. Springfield Armory ramped up production, but manufacturing these specialized barrels couldn't be rushed. The deep hole drilling process took 14 hours per barrel compared to 4 hours for standard M1 barrels. Chrome lining added another 6 hours. Quality control rejected approximately 12% of barrels that didn't meet tolerances. By December 31, 1944, total Mustang rifle production stood at 3,847 rifles. Distribution prioritized units engaged in mountain or jungle warfare, where long-range sniper threats were most acute. Each infantry battalion received between 12 and 18 rifles, depending on operational requirements. Marines got priority allocation. The Corps had lobbied aggressively for the weapons after early combat reports. The allocation created friction. Regular infantry companies wanted Mustang rifles. Rear echelon units requisitioned them. Some rifles disappeared into private collections. Several officers acquired them as personal weapons, despite regulations. Springfield Armory added serial number tracking and required written justification for any rifle leaving frontline units. Japanese intelligence became aware of the weapon by late November. Interrogations of prisoners captured near Hill 522 revealed confusion and fear. One Imperial Japanese Army sergeant, captured on November 27th, described it in broken English. "American rifle now shoots like Mustang plane. Very far, very accurate. Our Kyushu cannot hide." The Mustang rifle nickname, originally American slang, apparently made its way into Japanese tactical reports. Documents captured after the war referenced Masutangu Raifu, a phonetic Japanese rendering. Some Japanese soldiers believed Americans had mounted actual P-51 machine gun barrels on rifles, creating weapons that could penetrate cover and shoot incredibly long distances. This psychological effect proved almost as valuable as the weapon's actual capabilities. Japanese snipers, unsure of exactly how far the Mustang rifle could reach, began engaging from increasingly extreme distances, 800, 900, even 1,000 yards. At those ranges, even the excellent Type 38 Arisaka became ineffective. Hit probability dropped below 10%. Japanese sniper effectiveness plummeted across the entire theater. By January 1945, the Mustang rifle was operating across Leyte, Mindoro, and Luzon. The 37th Infantry Division reported particularly effective use during the Manila Campaign, where Japanese snipers in elevated buildings had initially dominated urban battlefields. Mustang rifle shooters, positioned in cleared buildings with clear sight lines, could engage Japanese positions at ranges where standard M1s couldn't compete. Technical issues emerged. The extended barrel, while accurate, proved fragile in close combat. 7 rifles were damaged beyond repair. In January alone, when Marines used them in hand-to-hand fighting or as breaching tools. Field commanders began issuing guidance. Mustang rifle operators should carry a standard M1 carbine or .45 pistol for close-range encounters. The chrome-lined barrels, while durable, showed unexpected wear patterns. After approximately 3,500 rounds, accuracy began degrading. The chrome lining developed microfractures that disrupted bullet stabilization. Springfield Armory issued technical bulletins instructing armorers to replace barrels after 3,000 rounds as preventive maintenance. Ammunition also posed challenges. The Mustang rifle performed optimally with M2 ball ammunition, a specific lot manufactured with particularly consistent powder charges and bullet weights. This ammunition was in short supply. When fired with standard M1 ball ammunition, accuracy at ranges beyond 700 yards decreased noticeably. Quartermasters began earmarking M2 balls specifically for Mustang rifle units. Still, the weapon proved itself repeatedly. On January 23, 1945, during fighting near Clark Field, Luzon, Private First Class Manuel Gonzalez used a Mustang rifle to engage a Japanese machine gun position at 780 yards. His first shot struck the gunner. His second disabled the weapon. The position, which had pinned down an entire company for 6 hours, was silenced in less than 30 seconds. March 1945 brought the Mustang rifle to Okinawa. The island's rugged terrain, dominated by ridges, escarpments, and cave complexes, provided ideal conditions for Japanese snipers. The 96th Infantry Division's after-action reports credit Mustang rifle-equipped marksmen with neutralizing an estimated 340 Japanese snipers between April 1st and June 21st. These kills prevented an estimated 1,800 American casualties, based on statistical modeling of typical sniper effectiveness. The Mustang rifle's effectiveness depended on understanding its capabilities and limitations. Marines and soldiers who mastered the weapon developed specific techniques that maximized performance. Ballistics differed significantly from the standard M1. The increased muzzle velocity and longer sight radius meant bullet drop calculations required relearning. At 700 yards, a standard M1 bullet dropped approximately 186 inches from line of bore. The Mustang rifle's bullet dropped only 162 inches, a 24-inch difference that could mean the gap between hitting chest and shooting over a target's head. Wind deflection became the critical variable at extended ranges. At 800 yards, a 10-mile-per-hour crosswind would push a .30-06 bullet approximately 42 inches off course. Mustang rifle operators learned to read environmental indicators, swaying grass, smoke drift, mirage patterns through the sights. The best shooters could estimate wind speed within 2 miles per hour just by observation. The weapon's semi-automatic capability provided a significant advantage over bolt-action sniper rifles. A skilled operator could place 3 aimed shots downrange in under 8 seconds, impossible with a bolt action. This rapid follow-up capability proved critical when engaging moving targets or when first-round misses required immediate correction. However, the semi-automatic action also introduced challenges. The M1's gas operation system created barrel harmonics, vibrations that affected precision. Each shot caused the barrel to whip in a consistent pattern. Mustang rifle shooters learned to time their shots to coincide with the barrel's return to zero position, typically about 1.2 seconds after the previous shot. Rapid fire degraded accuracy. Deliberate, paced shooting maintained precision. Maintenance became religion for Mustang rifle operators. The chrome-lined bore required specific cleaning procedures. Standard GI bore cleaner, which contained ammonia, could damage the chrome lining if left in contact too long. Field armorers developed a modified cleaning protocol. Swab with bore cleaner, let sit for exactly 3 minutes, then dry patch until clean. Oil the bore lightly with LSA, lubricating oil, semi-fluid, Arctic, wipe excess. The gas system required attention every 200 rounds. Carbon buildup in the gas port and gas cylinder would cause short stroking, failures to fully cycle the action. Operators carried specialized gas, port tools, and learned to field strip and clean the gas system in under 5 minutes. Barrel heat management became critical during sustained engagements. After 15 rapid shots, the extended barrel would heat to temperatures exceeding 400 degrees Fahrenheit. This heat caused temporary accuracy degradation as the barrel expanded unevenly. Smart operators carried water-soaked rags to drape over barrels during pauses in firing, or simply waited 3 to 5 minutes between sustained strings. The rifle's length, 40.8 inches overall compared to the standard M1's 43.6 inches, actually made it slightly more maneuverable than troops expected. The tapered barrel profile meant less weight at the muzzle, improving handling. But vegetation clearance remained a problem in dense jungle. More than one ambush resulted from a Mustang rifle's long barrel snagging on vines or branches at critical moments. Optics presented an ongoing debate. The Mustang rifle was issued with iron sights, but several units field-modified rifles by mounting M73 and M84 telescopic sights borrowed from M1903A4 sniper rifles. These optics, 2.5x and 5x magnification respectively, extended effective range and improved hit probability at 800 plus yards. However, scope-mounted Mustang rifles lost the weapon's primary advantage: rapid semi-automatic fire. A scoped bolt-action M1903A4 could deliver comparable accuracy at long range. The iron-sighted Mustang rifle's strength was its ability to rapidly engage multiple targets or deliver quick follow-up shots. Most experienced operators preferred iron sights. Ammunition selection proved critical. Testing revealed the Mustang rifle performed best with Lake City Arsenal M2 ball ammunition manufactured between July and December 1944. This specific production run used IMR 4895 powder with particularly consistent burn rates. Bullets were 150 grain flat base projectiles with boat tail modifications that improved ballistic coefficient. When this preferred ammunition wasn't available, which was most of the time, operators had to compensate. Standard M1 ball ammunition worked adequately to 600 yards, but showed increased dispersion beyond. Armor-piercing ammunition, with its hardened steel core, actually performed worse in Mustang rifles. The chrome-lined bore didn't engage the bullet jacket as effectively, leading to reduced accuracy. Enemy countermeasures evolved. Japanese snipers began operating in pairs: one shooter, one spotter. When Mustang rifle fire came inbound, Both would immediately displace to pre-prepared secondary positions. This hit-and-move tactic made it difficult for American marksmen to achieve follow-up kills. Japanese also began using smoke and concealment more effectively. Rather than firing from obvious positions, they'd establish multiple hides connected by tunnels or trenches. After firing a few shots, they'd move, making it nearly impossible to precisely locate them for counter-sniper fire. Some Japanese units deployed their own long-range shooters armed with captured British .303 Lee Enfield rifles, which had slightly better long-range ballistics than the Type 38. These shooters would specifically target Mustang rifle operators, identifiable by their longer rifles. At least 14 Mustang rifle operators were killed by Japanese countersnipers between December 1944 and April 1945. Production of the Mustang rifle ceased on May 15, 1945, with total production reaching 4,109 rifles. With Germany defeated and Japan clearly losing, the urgent tactical need that drove the weapon's development no longer existed. Springfield Armory shifted focus to post-war rifle development programs. After Japan's surrender, in August 1945, most Mustang rifles were collected and returned to depot-level storage. The weapons were classified restricted, experimental, despite their combat use. The technology they represented, particularly the chrome lining process and precision manufacturing techniques, remained sensitive. The military didn't want potential adversaries understanding exactly how American small arms technology had advanced. Between 1946 and 1950, the majority of Mustang rifles were destroyed. Exactly 3,147 rifles were recorded as demilitarized, cut into pieces with acetylene torches and smelted. The Army kept approximately 200 rifles in storage at Springfield Armory and Rock Island Arsenal, designated as reference samples for future development programs. The Korean War sparked brief interest in reviving the Mustang rifle concept. Chinese and North Korean snipers operating from elevated positions created similar tactical challenges to Pacific War Japanese snipers. In July 1951, Springfield Armory test-fired several stored Mustang rifles and found them still accurate despite 6 years of storage. However, by this point, the military was transitioning to the M14 rifle, which incorporated many lessons learned from the M1 program. The M14's standard barrel provided better long-range performance than the M1, making specialized extended barrel variants unnecessary. The chrome lining technology developed for Mustang rifle barrels found extensive application. By 1955, chrome-lined barrels became standard for M14 rifles, then M16s, and eventually virtually all U.S. military rifle barrels. This technology, born from the desperate need to counter Japanese snipers in 1944, became foundational to modern small arms manufacturing. The precision barrel-making techniques, deep-hole drilling, precision rifling, computer-controlled tapering, evolved into standard practice. Modern military sniper rifles like the M24 and M110 used descendants of the manufacturing processes developed for the Mustang rifle. The weapon remained classified until 1968, when the Army declassified World War II small arms development programs. Even then, information trickled out slowly. Most veterans who'd used Mustang rifles had signed non-disclosure agreements and believed they couldn't discuss the weapons. Only in the 1990s, when military historians began compiling comprehensive Pacific War archives, did the Mustang rifle's full story emerge. Today, perhaps 12 to 15 Mustang rifles exist in private collections and museums. 3 are on display, one at the Springfield Armory National Historic Site, one at the National Museum of the Marine Corps, and one at the National World War II Museum in New Orleans. Current collector value for a genuine Mustang rifle exceeds $85,000, though authentication is challenging given the rifle's visual similarity to standard M1s. Staff Sergeant Robert Hayward survived the war. He returned to his home in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, in November 1945, married his high school sweetheart, and worked as a machinist for 37 years. He rarely discussed his war service, and when he did, he never mentioned the Mustang rifle. The non-disclosure agreement he'd signed weighed on him. In 1992, at age 75, Hayward received a letter from a Marine Corps historian researching specialized World War II weapons. The Mustang rifle had been declassified. Hayward could finally talk. In a recorded interview conducted that year, he described November 8, 1944. "I'd watched 17 good men die and couldn't do a damn thing about it. Then Captain Mitchell handed me that rifle, and suddenly I could reach out and touch those bastards who'd been killing us with impunity. It wasn't about revenge. It was about making the killing stop. And that rifle, that beautiful rifle, let me do it." Hayward estimated he fired approximately 340 rounds through his Mustang rifle between November 8, 1944 and January 12, 1945, when he was rotated stateside for instructor duty. He was credited with 16 confirmed kills and 33 position suppressions. He never fired the weapon again after leaving the Philippines. Captain James Mitchell, who'd delivered that first Mustang rifle, was killed on Okinawa in April 1945. He was 29 years old. Theodore Hayes, the Springfield Armory engineer who conceived the Mustang rifle concept, continued working on small arms development until his retirement in 1963. His innovations, the tapered barrel profile, the chrome lining process, the harmonics dampening system, influenced 3 generations of American rifle design. He died in 1979, largely unknown outside military ordnance circles. Master Sergeant David Chen, who demonstrated the rifle for General Kruger, survived the war and became a competitive shooter. He won the national rifle matches at Camp Perry in 1947 using a standard M1 Garand. He never publicly disclosed his wartime use of the Mustang rifle until declassification. In interviews, he described it as the rifle that made invisible enemies mortal again. Of the estimated 4,109 Mustang rifles produced, only those 12 to 15 verifiable examples remain. The rest were destroyed, lost, or modified beyond recognition. But their legacy endures in every chrome-lined barrel, every precision-manufactured rifle bore, every American military rifle that can reach out and accurately engage targets at extended range. When Bob Hayward held that Mustang rifle for the first time, he didn't know he was holding a piece of history. He just knew he finally had a tool that could save his brothers' lives. That's what every innovation in this series represents. Not just technological achievement, but desperate attempts by brilliant people to bring more soldiers home alive. If you found this story compelling, hit that like button. Subscribe and ring the notification bell so you don't miss the next episode. We're covering the experimental proximity fuse that Americans disguised as standard artillery shells and the absolute havoc it wreaked on Japanese formations. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and if any of your family served in the Pacific Theater. These stories need to be told, and your engagement helps make sure they reach the people who need to hear them. To Bob Hayward, Theodore Hayes, Captain Mitchell, and the 409 men who carried Mustang rifles into combat. Your innovation and sacrifice changed warfare. We remember.